In the future, there's going to be two types of companies, ones with great AI and the ones that closed, right? I don't think that's too far off. And lending's no different. How I think it works in our industry is, if you're familiar with Clayton Christensen, when you're disrupting an industry, generally through technology, especially commoditized industry, which mortgage is, after Dodd-Frank, like, these are all widgets, man. We sell them to the same people at the same price, with the same rules, like everything's the same, right? And that was a function of Dodd-Frank and Cumin, a lot of regulation that was put in place post GFC, right? And so now, because it's a commodity, you can just apply technology for it. And how it's going to work, I think it's way up the value chain. You've already seen it starting to happen. And it follows the same trajectory.
Welcome to Pioneers, the show where we explore the intersection between humanity and AI. I'm your host, Ankar Patel. Over the last 10 years, I've built 3 AI startups, written 2 books about the subject, and I run a weekly AI newsletter. I also regularly teach and speak about the topic at conferences. This technology has grown faster than I think any of us could have imagined, and it's making us ask really important questions, such as, how ethical is AI? What will this technology look like in a few years, let alone a few months? And most importantly, does it have the power to truly change the world? And what does it mean for you? On this show, I'll be interviewing the founders, operators, and pioneers that are introducing AI into their companies and industries. We'll be asking them the really heavy-hitting questions that make them dig deep into the core of what we do. And without further ado, let's dive into today's episode. The mortgage industry is one of the most complex, regulated, and people-driven areas of finance. And yet, it's also one of the biggest opportunities for AI transformation. From underwriting to customer experience, automation and decisioning tools are already reshaping how lenders serve borrowers. Today's guest is Jason Harris, Strategic Initiatives Manager at American Portfolio Mortgage. Jason, welcome to Pioneers.
Thanks so far for having me. We may regret this entire thing, but for now, thanks.
Well, I know you've been in the mortgage world for many years now. Could you maybe share a little bit more about how you started your journey and then what things you've seen over the many years that you've been in this space?
It's interesting how rapid, like, the advancement, the acceleration of everything is increasing. I started off right at the tail end of carbon copy paper, right? We had CAVERS. It stands for Credit Alert Interactive Voice Response System. It's a phone number that you call to find out if a borrower is eligible for a government loan. It was a phone number. Right now, you just hit a button and it's on the internet. Now you get it in 5-10 seconds on the web. I don't think that promise was fulfilled in whole, because I don't think at the time they took into account how much variance there is in people and their life, right? Like, we're all special snowflakes with our own thumbprints and participation trophies. Like, nobody's the same. All the documents are all over the place. But where you are now, I think, to go from all of that, right, carbon copy paper, to where we are now, where we can ingest all these different things and turn it into a standard set of data that now we can work with. If that's your job, it should be terrifying, because I think that's really what's going to change, right? The human interaction, that's not going to change. You still need to talk to people and coach them and work with them and understand their problems in their life. But the mechanical functions of just converting these analog into digital, like, that's dead, man. The big thing was BPL, process outsourcing. Everybody was looking at India to do these mechanical tasks, right? These manual, tedious work, and that's where your cost savings were. And then, maybe, I don't know, during COVID, we started to pick up more RPA, right? Like, and then now it's, okay, well, let's just get an agent to do it. And then, I don't know what the next thing is, but if you look at how fast that's advanced, it's incredibly exciting. If you're not looking at it, you're going out of business. I think there's a quote from Cuban recently, like, he put it on LinkedIn. He said, in the future, there's going to be 2 types of companies, ones with great AI and the ones that closed, right? I don't think that's too far off. And lending's no different. How I think it works in our industry is, if you're familiar with Clayton Christensen, when you're disrupting an industry, generally through technology, especially commoditized industry, which mortgage is, after Dodd-Frank, like these are all widgets, man. We sell them to the same people at the same price with the same rules, the same, like everything's the same, right? And that was a function of Dodd-Frank and Cumin, a lot of regulation that was put in place post GFC, right? And so now, because it's a commodity, you can just apply technology for it. And how it's going to work, I think it's way up the value chain. You've already seen it starting to happen. And it follows the same trajectory. Like, this is the trajectory. This is not disputable. Like, look at any commodity, and this is how it works. It's going to start with what's the lowest hanging, easiest thing to do. In this industry, it's rate term refis, right? You can almost entirely automate that right now if you're a servicer and you have the borrower. And so what comes next up the value chain would be the same basic transaction, but maybe in a purchase, right? And then work up, and now it's a government something, and now it's, into the non-cum. How long do each of these incremental steps take? I don't know, but I know that it with each one, the incremental time is becoming lesser and lesser because you're learning with each thing and then applying what you've learned to the next step. So how long does that take? I don't know. I mean, on the one side, I'm very excited to watch it because this is what I've dreamt about for 15 years. My life's goal is to eliminate humans from, these terrible components of lending. On the other side, I do some of those things. So what am I going to do? I have no idea. So that's the terrifying part. So it's like watching Blockbuster and knowing that Netflix is out there and you know how this ends.
I think, Jason, this is very helpful. I mean, I think what you're painting a picture is that it used to be very antiquated, 20, 30 years ago. And then it's modernized maybe at accelerating rates, where I think now it's, how quickly can you get a quote out and get to close, as an example. And having agents that are in the background speeding up the process is your differentiator. And if you don't do that well, you're going to be out of business. So it's like either the ones that adopt it and then kind of make that transition, or if you're left behind, then you won't be in business. It's going to be kind of the age of the dinosaur. So, I think that's sort of the backdrop that you have. Now, I'm curious, where are you seeing that today? So, generative AI, you could argue that it's been around 3 years with ChatGPT's launch in November 2022. Where are you seeing it tangibly kind of make a difference in your day-to-day work? Because we could talk about future state, and I'd love to get there, but it would be good to know what is happening in present-day work.
I think right now you have a lot of servicers who are implementing it to monitor. And first was we're gonna do BPO and outsource, and then we're gonna automate it. And now you have agents doing that same thing. Like whatever is the most stable, repeatable process that demands the bare minimum interaction. It's generally the safest, right? And so people have started to apply agents there. What can I tell an agent to do that a human is currently doing? And it's really, it's not going to hurt anything. It's not going to break anything. If it goes wrong and it creates an exception, and begin to apply rules so that their people can now scale. A great example that other companies I've seen do is in the mortgage lending space is disclosures, automated disclosures. It's generally this time-consuming, laborious practice. It takes between 4 and 10 minutes per loan. The first application where I really saw somebody make a huge difference was that. They said, okay, well, here's the rules. When these criteria are met, just monitor everything and just go send it for us. If you can't do it, just phone a friend, let somebody know, and then, that person will now get involved. They went from having, I think, a staff of like 10 people to do that. Now it's just one person, and they only get involved when there's an exception. And so when you look at it and start examining your workflow in those terms, like, is it going to do 100% of everything today? I think this is the misconception. No. Can it do 80? Right? Like, you got to look at it like a manager. If you can delegate 80% of something to someone else, delegate it. Because if you can do that, you just 4x'd, right? And I think what'll end up happening eventually, and this is what I'm seeing, it's gradual and slow because our industry is slow to embrace change. The cost of noncompliance is great, which makes it scary, but you're starting to see that happen now. And it's exactly that point of Cubans. People are going to do it, and they're slowly going to learn that, oh, well, now I can take 80%. Maybe in 6 months, 12 months, 80 becomes 90. becomes 95, becomes 99, right? And so either one of two things happens. Either A, I'm growing into this and I'm retaining my existing staff with no incremental cost to do so, while simultaneously, improving service and speed. Or you put all that stuff in your margins and you just get a lot of people and you get incredibly competitive. Like, there's a lot of ways you can go to the strategy, but you can't enact any of them if you don't have the resources and the money to produce the loans. And that's really what it's freeing up. It's freeing up labor capacity, man.
Yeah. So Jason, for people in these roles like loan officers, underwriters and such, as this technology comes online and they're using it and they're offloading to agents what's possible, like the 80% to 80% level, or maybe 80% of the work, right? I think that's a good kind of frame, which is like not 100% is going to get done there, but there's a lot that could be. Where are people spending their expertise and time? Especially if like a lender doesn't want to downsize their headcount. Let's say they have really great people, they're a really good culture fit, they want to do more business with the same team. So they're not looking at it as a people cutting measure. They're looking at it as a way to go and bid for more business, win more business.
Yeah.
What does it look like? Like, what does AI take on, and where do people spend the bulk of their time?
Well, again, it helps people scale, right? So for your sales team, your loan officers, they don't have to spend as much time in the minutia of every transaction and all the mechanical work that's involved. Again, when I said earlier, consent and contract, like that's where you stop it. This would be another one where, okay, let it do all the thinking. Let me review its work before I communicate the decision. All right, well, all that thinking and tedious work, that's 80 or 90% of the time, right? But with that free time, what do I use it for now? Well, now they're using it to market more and market broader. If you're if you're a pound to save the pay big kind of salesperson, like, you're just grinding on the phone, right? You're shaking babies and kissing hands out there. That's what the salespeople are using it for, is to help leverage their time, send their emails, monitor their consumers. That's all really easy, low-hanging fruit that can be done today. In the operational world, I haven't seen it embraced entirely in underwriting yet, but in other components, like I said, with disclosures or locking or post-closing shipping, like all of these things that are very stable processes and repeatable, you've seen people start to apply it. And then what they've done with their staff is not necessarily get rid of them, but point them at other things, other initiatives, right? Like, the truth of the matter is, since 2022 Q2, every mortgage company in the country has been on life support. Like, there's been incredible M&A, consolidation, lots of failures, closures. And what things like this have allowed them to do is, okay, I can retain my existing staff. I can handle any surge, a limited surge of business without hiring a new person. I can put that money in the bank, and I can treat my people better while still remaining in the black without having to overwork them over the weekend. Like, that little teeny incremental savings is massive in an industry like ours. Profit. I mean, your grocery stores make 3% on a can of soup. We make 10 basis points. So the razor thin margins, it's helped people even expand it just a little without having to kill their people. It's a big lift. I just minor implementations.
So Jason, I think that makes a lot of sense. It frees up people to spend more time on activities that are more people facing. And I think it's very clear cut for the loan officers. They're spending more time with the borrowers and allows them to drive more business. And I think there's going to be a little bit of a transition period where the loan officers and underwriters have to figure out, what does their job description look like now that they've offloaded some of their work to agents? It's not something that you can figure out overnight, but I think people can figure out where should they be spending their time. And I think it's going to, I would say arguably, but still, I think it's very true, is people are going to spend more time on the more complex work that human intelligence is truly required for. And some of the lower hanging administrative work, which still could be 80% of the role, I think that's what gets offloaded to agents in the background, right? So it gives professionals more time for the human side, problem solving and things like that you mentioned earlier.
I think that's right. Like, agent assisted coding is like, this is a good analog for this, right? Because you can just have an error check for you while you come up with all the creative ideas. And in the same capacity, that's one thing where people I think fail to see the immediate benefit is that machines don't, I mean, I don't want to say this broadly, but machines don't make mistakes like humans make mistakes. They don't have emotions. They don't have heuristics. They don't have cognitive biases unless you give it to them. They don't have fat fingers to do a typo. And so from a simple error reduction component, right? Like just double checking work or preventing defects. This is a huge loss in the industry. That's something machines are phenomenal at, right? So you put it at things like this that it can do better than you, right? And it's just another value. So there's an infinite way that you can take things and apply technology to help you, and they don't have to replace it. It helps you scale. Just go through all these things and let me, tell me where the problems are. Your correspondent and your wholesale lenders have been doing this for a couple of years now, because they take these entire loan packages, which are 1,000 pages, and they have tens of thousands of data points. Mm-hmm. For a human to go through that and you're reading a book, right? And you're looking for on page 153 and on page 827, the same word is, it has two different values assigned to it. Like, I'm never going to catch that, right? But a machine that's a cakewalk. Yeah. So for things like that, it's really great. And I've seen a lot of success with people doing that kind of application.
So let's talk a little bit about the macro environment, so the lending environment itself. So rates have fluctuated. Now they're on, there's a rate cutting cycle underway. Affordability is under pressure, but for a while, things just weren't moving. Transactions weren't happening. And lenders were trying to, in some ways they had idle staff, right? Things weren't happening quite as much. Obviously, there's the other part of the cycle, like in 21, where there was too much business, not enough loan officers and underwriters. So what are you seeing in the market right now, and how are lenders kind of positioning for perhaps an inflection point here?
I don't know if inflection point is the right word. Realistically, what's going to happen is we're going to end up in some recession at some point, right? They've been calling it funny. How many? 8 of the last 3 recessions have been predicted with, accuracy, whatever that 18 of the last 8. I don't know what the stat is, but at some point we're going to have a recession, right? And in our industry, we end up being countercyclical, because long-term interest rates are a function of inflation expectations, and mortgage rates are anchored to those. So when the economy tanks, inflation expectations tank, interest rates, long-term interest rates, not the short-term controlled by the Fed, but long-term interest rates decline. And now there becomes a refi boom as everyone loses their job. That's the nature of our industry. Like I said, it's highly cyclical. It's also highly cynical. I think people have been preparing for that thing to happen for, a couple of years now. And every year they say it's going to happen again. Like, oh, it's going to be this year. Like, it's going to be the same. I don't know when it's going to come. And I don't think Jerome Powell knows where interest rates are going to be. I don't think Jerome Powell does. I don't think the Treasury Secretary, Donald Trump, the president, anybody in Congress, none of them know. Jamie Dimon, name somebody. They don't know where they're going to be. And so I think from a business perspective, in finance in general, if your business is sensitive to interest rates, that's not the right approach to take. Is what's going to happen with the macroeconomy? Like, you can't control it. What can you control? Yeah. I can control my costs, right? I can control my customer acquisition costs. These are productive things that I can do. I have no idea what's going to happen in the industry. I know that when this fever does break, realistically, you're going to have a major wave of probably housing hit the market. Like, there'll be supply come to the market, because psychologically, I think, and this is my opinion, it's very difficult for 50 or 60% of consumers right now. They have a 30-year fixed interest rate in the threes or below 4. Psychologically, and not just psychologically, in a practical sense too, you can't take that person from 4.25 and put them at 7, and really they're not going to get a bigger house, right? Like, they're going to get the same house with double the mortgage payment. That's not a win. But when that 7 becomes 5.25, 4.99 with a discount point, somewhere down there, right, closer to 5, then this guy that's married to his home and stuck in it, Suddenly he's willing to move, he or she, like they're happy to go somewhere, right? Now they can finally upgrade. Okay. So now they're going to list their home, which frees up supply. And so now you have like a more natural, healthy environment. I think it's going to happen fast. It's going to be quick. There's not going to be a massive refi boom though. There'll be a short one. It'll just be this vintage product that was originated between Q2 22 and whenever it happens, but you're only talking about a couple years of really low volume activity, right? So it's not going to be this huge surge. What you will get is all this existing home sales activity, which is a huge problem for our country right now. We don't have enough housing stock, and I think people have been trying to figure out how do I prepare for that, right? Without overstaffing today because I can't afford to, and then. And without, without having to hire, because if you wait till that moment happens and you hire then, you're going to overpay for talent. And then you're going to have to, unfortunately, there's a human part when you have to let that talent go. It doesn't feel good to hand somebody a pink slip. And it always happens right around this time of year in the holidays. Like it feels awful. And you're basically like, you're handing someone a death sentence. Like, hey, dude, sorry, Merry Christmas. Here's 2 weeks severance. And I know you're not going to find a job for 3 months. Good luck. So like you're doing everything you can to avoid that scenario because it feels awful for me. I can't imagine what it feels like for them because they just lost their job. Although I have been on the receiving end of that more than once. It sucks for that guy too. Mm-hmm. So I think everyone's been trying to figure out how do I prepare for that inevitability because it's going to happen. Just it's a function of when. So how do you prepare for it when right now we're not making a lot of money to make those investments, to invest in the improvements?
Yeah.
Right? So it's a chicken and a horse.
I think, Jason, that makes a lot of sense. It's like, I think this industry has been one where you would go through different hiring and then firing cycles where you'd hire people when the business is there, and then you'd unfortunately have to let them go when the business is not there. And I think what agents are able to allow you to do is kind of scale to demand without having to worry about hiring and firing a lot of people. And I think the hard part is how do you kind of justify making investments in this newer thing, maybe that hasn't been battle tested, when business isn't booming necessarily, right? And I think the way I would kind of frame this for a lot of people is like, I think this is the time to make investments. Now you want to make sure the investments kind of have a return on investment sooner rather than later. So it has to be at a price that makes sense. But this is not just for the short haul. It's for the longer haul, kind of seeing the entire cycle through. It puts you in a much more competitive place when business is booming. And you'll make up multiples of what you invest today because you've kind of put the necessary foundational work in. But I still understand like why different lenders sometimes might be uneasy about making those investments or changing what they do because they feel like, hey, look, I don't have the extra capital right now to go and invest in this new thing. But before they know it, they'll have underinvested in this, and then they're stuck because business is starting to boom and they're having to do the age-old thing, which is hire more people to get work done.
There's a quote, I think it's attributed to Henry Ford. The machine that you need and don't buy, you'll ultimately find that you've paid for it and don't have it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the case here, right? Like, it's hard to make those investments. And it's been hard for me to convince many executive teams that this is the right way to go. Like they're not convinced. The ROI, I think the best way to frame it is like, okay, well, what would I get out of a new employee, right? Like if you can turn it into a dollar amount and like these tasks can now be done by this thing costs X. Okay, it would cost me this much labor talent to do those same things, right? And then look at it as instead of your next incremental human hire, you look at this. Like at least it's a viable, like it's an interesting alternative for no other reason than just to be academically honest, right? Like, okay, at least look at all your alternatives. Like you owe that to your business. When you do that, you find that the ROI is exactly what you said. Like if you can find the tasks that they can point to agents at, it's infinitely more valuable. The ROI is like, it's not even close. And they don't get tired. They don't take bathroom breaks. You don't have to hire HR. You don't have to, give them, you don't got to write them up, give them notices or coaching, train. Like you don't have to do any of those things that you do with people, right? Give them vacation time, like they just go. The hard part is the setup, right? Like you do get that. That is the hard part. Like you got to train them right. And as a whole, I think that's one thing why this has been really difficult for the industry, by and large, to embrace. We do not have good, just in my experience, SOPs. Like processes are not well defined. A lot of people don't have great training, and that's probably been one of the biggest inhibitors. If I were on the other end of this, and this is what I were going to companies and saying, "Hey, I can help you, to automate all these things, and we can install some agents." The real hard part would be, first, I need to help you write your SOPs, and let me help you draft your procedures, right? Because if you have that part, then it's easy.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, maybe final question for you, Jason. I think as a lender, you have options about. Do you try to build on your own using like agents, right? And I think a lot of lenders, it depends on the size and the scale, they might be better off going with the software vendor. But they have choices between like their incumbent set, like call it their LOS that might be introducing some agent feature or some AI feature, versus newer players that are coming online strictly to do just this, like natively agentic. How would you advise lenders to kind of make the right build versus buy versus partner, and with which type of software vendor as they kind of navigate through this AI and the agent journey?
I would say right now, like it's not even close, because the existing LOS landscape, they don't have available agentic anything. Like that's really one of the big problems, right? Like it doesn't exist. So you have to go to a specialist that does a third party, because our AI, like it's not native in any LOS that I'm aware of. I mean, there's probably some in the market, but by and large, like the mortgage lending space, it's an oligopoly, and I don't think any of them really have powerful AI solutions in there yet. So right this second, and maybe for the foreseeable future, because a lot of the technologies that exist today, I don't know how they would support it, because we're talking about code that was built at the same time as like the Microsoft Zune. Some of this code is Zune era, right? We're not just iPhone, like iPod, like, and even before the iPod Nano, before the first iPod, right? So I don't know how well it supports some of the more advanced, stuff that's happening today. I'm sure some of the LOSs, the newer ones, do, but by and large, I mean, it's you're kind of on your own for standalone, right? So I think the risk of buying, even if you have an LOS that has something native in it, that's great that it's going to be native. It's probably going to function out of the box better. You're also going to be beholden to whatever their rules are. If there were a strategic advantage that you could get over your competition, you're not going to realize it, because they have the same things that you do. And so my view is always, look, build your own thing, customize your own thing, because it's the only way you can develop a sustainable competitive advantage. Otherwise, look, we're running a stock car race. We all have the same car. We're driving on the same track with the same crowd, right? Like some of the drivers are going to be better than others, but by and large, like, all of our stuff is provided by the same people. So how are you going to win? It makes it very difficult until you start being able to bolt on things that other drivers don't have access to. Now it becomes interesting. Like that, you start to be able to develop a wider and wider moat. And the big players in the industry that have, stupid money, that's what they're doing. They're building their own stuff. The thing that I find exciting about it, though, is that we all have access to about the same stuff right now, right? I don't need massive economies of scale to realize the benefits of outsourcing to overseas. I don't need massive economies of scale to automate a task. We can all do the same thing with the same stuff at about the same price. And so now it becomes like, who's got the best ideas and who can be the most nimble and fastest to market to get that advantage of the first mover. And that's where this stuff becomes like, for me, it's exciting because I'm a little guy. I got big ideas, but not big pockets.
Well, this has been great, Jason. I really appreciate you for all the insights and just breakdown of what's happening in this space and what it looks like in the years ahead. So I really appreciate you being on the show here.
Thanks, man. It's been fun.